Hello, my name is Megan. I was born completely blind and I think this gives me a different way of looking at things. One of the fun things about being blind is that I often smell or find things that other people wouldn't find. For instance, I can smell aeroplanes in the sky, and because I read Braille, I can read in the car without getting travel sick. The flip side to this is that often I can't share the fun things about being blind with people who understand what I'm talking about. I have a guide dog who comes with me wherever I go, and it is interesting to see the impact that that has on my identity. I often find that people will come up to her, stroke her and talk to her when she's in harness, even when she's guiding me, even when I'm crossing a road, which is the most unhelpful time to stroke a guide dog. I find that people often talk to the dog before talking to me, or even try and talk to me through the dog. So they'll say, "Hello dog, what's your name? What kind of dog are you?" And it's quite an isolating experience. The dog is part of me. She's part of what I do, and she isn't me. She's my assistant. So I guess for me, it's this interesting place where I often see or experience things that other people don't. Most people are too busy looking at the wonderful things in the world around them to notice all the beautiful smells and wonderful textures that we have that make up our world. It would be lovely to be able to share this with more people and for them to be able to see what I'm talking about without feeling that it's a shame that I can't experience the sight that they have.
Hello, my name is Rob Surrey. I've been a disability campaigner for about 15 years. One of the things that I campaign about is the way social care is and the way, depending on which area or county you live, you either get more or less care. I class this as the postcode lottery of care. Now, I think we have got a chance to change care for the better with the government review into social care. I would like to see not only experts at the table, but people who receive care on a daily basis feeding into that government review of the social care. I think we can change it for the better, but I think we all need to listen to each other and learn from each other. Thank you.
I'm Vicci. Some of the things that I identify as include a chief executive, a friend, a sister, a partner, a world traveller, and a wine lover. I think identity is so important because it's our opportunity to construct what our sense of self means to us and what we want to portray to other people. I think it's really important that we're empowering people to create their own sense of identity and that we're not putting labels on people that identifies them by placing them into a box that might work for us, but that they might not identify with at all. I think allyship closely links to identity because we can all identify as human, and at its crux, allyship is about us kind of looking out for each other, recognising our privilege and what we can do to support each other, and to raise up people who may be facing barriers that others might not. It's about not seeing the world in a them and us perspective, but seeing ourselves as all in it together.
Hello, my name is Reg Cobb. I have a sign name, which is Reg, because I'm always grinning. I'm a happy-go-lucky person. I'm happy being deaf. I was born deaf, grew up deaf. My parents are deaf. I went to a deaf school. I've got many deaf friends, so I identify myself as a deaf person and comfortable with that identity. And I wouldn't want to become hearing. You know, at night time, I can turn off my hearing aids and I sleep like a log. I have many deaf friends and like mixing with the deaf community because it's a very rich language. I think the only one thing is that society says that I can't do things, which becomes a bit of a barrier for me. And, you know, it does knock your confidence. I am a confident person, but the problem is society treat me differently. And over the years, I've applied for a variety of different jobs, and the feedback has always been, you've been close, you're close, you almost got it. And it's always the hearing person, the non-deaf person, that's got the job over myself. And I always ask the question, is that because I'm deaf, or is it because they are more qualified than me? I love the deaf community. I have many deaf friends. We go out traveling. I visit many of my deaf friends. I communicate at home with my deaf partner, and I have few non-deaf friends. However, they do make me feel that I'm included in things. I never feel left out. Sometimes when people are talking, it is difficult to access information and I might miss things, which I don't like, and I'm not comfortable with that. But with my deaf friends, I never feel that isolation or the need to be left out. You know, I do mix with other people with running or cycling club, and we do communicate effectively. I mean, my ultimate dream in 20 years would be that society, that the hearing community, you know, wake up and are more aware about communicating with deaf people and that deaf people are not left out. That's my sort of Martin Luther King speech. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Shekainah Swamba. I'm a 19-year-old student. I'm currently studying fashion design at Cardiff Metropolitan University. I created the Black Lives Matter vigil in Cheltenham on the 8th of June 2020. What drove me to creating the event was the death of George Floyd. Personally, for me, I believe that the death of George Floyd was the tip of the iceberg for many brothers and sisters across the Black community. I myself have been a victim of racism, and I can assure you it's a very unpleasant experience. My first encounter was in year 7, the start of year 7. Yeah, roughly the start of year 7. So I remember starting my new secondary school. I was like, wow, year 7, you know, secondary school, like I'm a grown person now and stuff like that. I was mingling with people, making new friends. It was great until my first racial encounter. I remember I was called a nigger. I was told to go back to my own country. People would make horrible, rude comments about my skin complexion, saying you're too dark and stuff like that. And it took a toll on me. It really took a negative toll on me. And deep down, I felt that I deserved it because I was Black. I was born Black, and I just thought, you know what, I'm Black. I have to accept it, you know? And growing up, my parents have always said to me, being Black, you have to be extra careful, you know, in the things you do, and you always have to work harder than others. And I didn't really understand that growing up. I just like, I'd always like try and argue back with them, like, oh, you don't understand and stuff like that. But they knew what was coming ahead, you know. They were just trying to prepare me as a young Black female, you know, raising a Black child in a predominantly white area. Like, what more can you do apart from just give them words of wisdom, you know, try and prepare them, because you don't know when it's going to happen. So I remember that happened to me, and I ended up moving schools because I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to walk through those school corridors and not feel like I was going to be racially attacked again, you know? So it was tough, but I truly do believe that a change is due. A change is due now. Not in 6 months' time, not in a year's time, but now. We need to start making small steps now in order to make a greater change for the future. I don't ever want to be in a position where I have children of my own and I'm telling them the things my parents told me in order to prepare them, you know. I want to send my children off to school and not have to worry about, okay, someone might call them a nigger, someone might, you know, tell them, go back to your own country, you know, and it's tough. And yeah, so my experiences led me to move in secondary schools because it took me to a dark place. I didn't know what to do. I was helpless. And despite the fact I moved secondary schools, the racism didn't stop. It wasn't as severe as the first secondary school I went to, but it continued, you know. And even now, being 19, racism is just a thing, you know, that I face here and there. But there comes a time where things like this need to be stopped.
So I'd actually moved to Cheltenham in October of 2005 with my family. In year five, I was one of the only Black children in my school, my primary school, my secondary school, and my sixth form. And with that being the case, there was also that had its own set of problems in that being one of the only Black children there. I'm not sure how much exposure some of my like classmates and other like schoolmates had with Black people outside of you know, films, TV, and music, and also, you know, what they've been told by relatives. Or it wasn't uncommon to have people make racist jokes at my expense, or even you know, just say racist terms, you know, in front of me. You know, just make racist remarks and stuff like that. And it really did. It played on my it really did play on my mind. To the point that like I always found it very hard to kind of let myself go completely. And just trust people. You know, just trust people completely, because I don't know who actually has my back. But from feeling as though not many people had my back, and that's not to say that I didn't have friends that did have my back, but from feeling as though in those early days, feeling as though I didn't really have anybody come to my aid, as I've gotten older, it's now become a thing that if I see somebody in need, then I'm always willing to help. On top of that, I remember in in history you get taught this warped history. Being taught that your people sold your own people into slavery, it really does something to you as a child and makes you and destroys your sense of self-worth, because you then start to internalize and think, was it justified then if we sold ourselves into slavery? Because you're not taught the context of anything. You're not taught history in an in-depth way to kind of explain the nuance of any of it. It really denigrates your spirit, especially as a young child, when you're supposed to be, when you're not able to take pride in the victories of the country that you live in and you were born in, because people see you as not being of that place. From the moment that I was allowed to go and hang out with friends, as kids, you just go, you hang out in parks and stuff like that. But then obviously sometimes you have police come, and instantly it's like, as soon as the police come, it doesn't matter how many people's there, I'm always getting stopped. And then after a while, you start to question, like, well, what is it? Why is it that I am always getting stopped? What is the common denominator? This happened quite a lot. This happened quite a lot. That I'd be stopped and searched to the point that now I don't really have much faith in the police as an agency that's supposed to protect and uphold my civil liberties. That's just the way it is. As a black man, I have experience as well. Just you're constantly, because you're seen as a threat. So anytime you go into a shop, guess who's being followed? It's always always you. Even if I'm not wearing a hoodie, I'm still getting searched. I'm still getting followed. It's kind of hard to talk about this because of the fact that it's not really something that I enjoy talking about. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody really likes having to relive some of the trauma that you've been through.
Hello, my name is Shekainah. I grew up in Gloucestershire. I identify as queer and use they them pronouns because you basically just can't fit me into any heteronormative box. I also identify as a black person of colour because whilst I understand I reap the benefits of being light-skinned, I'm still racialised as black in society. Allyship to me is amplifying marginalised voices, and I mean plural of voices if you have the means and spaces to do so, because you're not going to get one person who's representative of a whole group of people. So that is much better of seeing more representation. And with that comes intersectionality, understanding that for me, going into a queer space and talking about my blackness is just as important as being able to talk about my queerness. And likewise in a space for black or people of colour, talking about my experiences, my queerness is just as important. And not trying to segregate certain identities. Thirdly, checking in what said event, idea, initiative, who is actually for. If, say, it's for queer people of colour, then is it designed by queer people of colour? If not, why not? It's not a way to call you out, just a way to understand, is there more that you could be doing? And finally, it's just being okay with the fact that you're probably going to get it wrong at some point and not getting defensive. So often people choose not to say anything rather than maybe get it wrong. In order to get past racism, homophobia, xenophobia, ableism, fatphobia, all of the rest of it, we need to have more conversations so it becomes more normalised.
Hi, my name's Naja and I'm the Community Building Group Coordinator for Cheltenham Welcomes Refugees. We are a volunteer organisation of approximately 50 volunteers and over 300 members, and we endeavour to welcome and support the refugees and asylum seekers who come to Cheltenham to enable them to make it their home and feel truly comfortable here. We also raise awareness within the wider community of our goals in the effort to make Cheltenham a more welcoming place altogether. One of the biggest challenges that people face coming to this country is the language barrier. Many come with little to no understanding, and learning a new language is not an easy thing to do. Coupled with the language is the hurdle of getting accustomed to a culture that is so far from what you know. Many of them come from parts of the world where there are no pubs and nightlife revolves around family and not drinking. Some of the families have even had difficulties with their neighbours because of these cultural differences. Finding employment is, of course, a real challenge. Navigating this is very difficult, and the job centre doesn't always support the refugees well enough. So they have to take up employment in a completely different field to what they've been trained in. This might mean becoming a delivery driver for a takeaway rather than being a painter or a decorator or a builder that you have been for so long. One of the people who we know had his manager complain to him about how his English wasn't good enough. And this made him really uncomfortable and made him quite nervous and knocked his confidence on applying for other jobs. Another member talked about how she came to the UK with such big ambitions, only to realise that those goals may take a lot longer than she expected. Going to school as well is a real difficulty, and one of the children we know had to wait 3 months before starting school, which meant that she started later than the others. She found it really difficult and found expressing herself quite hard, and people would often misunderstand her, which she found very frustrating. So how to become a better ally? Well, it's important to listen to people and uplift them, but also pay close attention to spaces that are composed of white people, and it's vital to be proactive on this. We need to see refugees and asylum seekers as individuals with stories and abilities. It is our duty and responsibility to educate ourselves on these stories and try to understand the history and the background of where these people are coming from and why. Some of the members of the refugee community have performed at our events even, showcasing their raw talent and their unbounded determination. They come from a multitude of backgrounds with many different talents and skills which they long to use in everyday life. They want to achieve independence and to contribute culturally and economically to their local community, which is something we are eager to help them with. We need to create opportunities for them to succeed and thrive, whether that be in school, employment, or society, so that they may provide their unique perspective and make us more well-rounded as a community.